What's going on, guys? We are back with a special video all about the Thrustmaster eSwap X Pro controller. We've been working with them for the past few months, and I just want to go over their awesome mapping tools that they have for their controller that you can download. When you get the controller, you just go to their link. I'll put the link in the description below if you want to check it out. I don't know if it'll work if you don't have one of their controllers, but let's talk about it. So, I got the Thrustmaster here. It's all hooked in, ready to go. Now, on the bottom, which we won't be able to see very well, there's two profile signs. I should probably hold this better. So there's two profiles right there on the controller. You might not be able to see it all that well, but basically, so that this controller can hold two different profiles at the same time, which is fantastic if, say, you were a big fan of Rocket League and then you were playing maybe some other game that you can't change any of the buttons in, and you want to really customize that controller at the time. One of the nice things is when you go into this menu so you can create your own preset, as we see here, and I made a test version here, and do whatever you want to do down here. But then what you can do is, like, all right, like, I'll name this one Battlefield or something. Like, say their controls, you couldn't change everything. You can then just call this Battlefield, and when you want to play Battlefield, you can just load it onto one of these profiles, and then say, like, I'm not really playing Battlefield anymore. Then you can make a new account, and then load that onto the controller. And then when you want to go back to Battlefield, just come back here really quick and click two buttons, and you're back onto the controller with that Battlefield preset. So that is a fantastic way to do it. Rocket League's a good game because you can map all the buttons, so you don't have to worry about this as much. But it is a great tool for other games. So that is that. Now let's go over what exactly you can do when you change things on the Thrustmaster controller itself. So first, I'm going to show you the 180. So this is the back of the controller, and there's four buttons back here. And you can make these buttons whatever you want. The default when you get the controller is it makes it the face buttons, and then also RB, LB, LT, and RT on the back for Profile 2. So Profile 1, face buttons. Profile 2 is your triggers. Now, Profile 1, I think, makes a lot of sense. I think normally it doesn't make a ton of sense because normally you would hold the controller and be using, like, pretty much all the triggers and not the face buttons. But for people that want to use the face buttons and not hold it that way, then it's a great way to do it. Just for me personally, I wouldn't use it that way. But when you go into mapping, not only can you change those back buttons, you can literally change any button on the controller itself, which is fantastic. Again, for games where you need buttons change, or for maybe like accessibility options where you can't hold the controller properly and you can only hit certain buttons, you want to put the most important buttons on where you can hit or where you're most comfortable. So a lot of games, and it's still in 2020, they don't let you choose all the buttons in a game. You can do it here and make your own custom preset and then load it onto the controller. So this is where you would do all that. You can change literally everything here. And then one thing to note, which I'm not sure if it'll show it in this, is obviously, we talked about this before, but obviously, here's how the controller begins with the analog up here and then the D-pad down there. You can always just take out the D-pad and then move it down into the other spot. I don't have the tool with me right this second because I haven't been using it, but you just put it back in and it'll load back in. But if you wanted to put it in that D-pad slot, you could do so there, and then the controller would look like that there. I'll see if I can find the tool offhand. It's around somewhere. It's in the controller bag. I just don't know where I put it, but I don't normally play in the PS4 style. So that's how you do that. You can remap literally everything there. Moving on to the mini sticks. Now, this is insane, and I haven't touched this yet. I'm a little scared. But you can literally change how far small movements go, medium movements, and large movements on the stick itself, which is absolutely insane to me. So say there's a game where you do a lot of maybe like slow walking because you're trying to be sneaky, but you don't. But the controller itself is like, well, then you have to move very little bit, but you don't really like that. You can literally just move the small movement up, and then maybe medium movement really doesn't do anything in that game. So you can kind of just get rid of it and be like, all right, half of this will be small movement, and then I'll jump to a large movement. Or just split that in half, and now you got large movement out there at 21%, medium movement at 21% as well. But you really want those like slow walk-in movements. So if you want that, you can do that. You can change it to a square dead zone as well. So you can do whatever you want here, but so this, like, honestly, I haven't used yet, but I love that it's in there for people that maybe want to play around with this. I'm a little scared personally to test this. Like, obviously in Rocket League, I don't think I need it all that much. So we will reset back to default. Do that, boom. So we are back to small, medium, and large. Then you can set your dead zones. So 0% right now on the joysticks, and you can always buy new joysticks as well, which is one of the best parts of these controllers, because a lot of controllers, the joystick goes first. So you can always just buy just that little piece and throw the controller in there. So, or throw it into the controller. So right now we're at 0%, and then outer is 1%. That is their default. I have left it the same. And not only to do that on the left stick, you can do that on the right stick as well, however you want to change this. You can really customize this for any game that you want to play. Moving on, the triggers. Now, this is another really cool feature that I have not played around with too much, but I love the customization of it. So, the left trigger, you can see me pulling it down. Well, you can't really see me pulling it down, but I'm pulling it down, and that number is moving. But for the first, like, 10%, it won't have any activation, which is good if you have a heavy hand on your triggers and you're waiting there. Maybe you want to make that even further, where you're really holding that controller and kind of pushing down on your triggers, but you don't want them to activate just yet. Now, if you really want to be snappy in like a first-person shooter, you like go ahead and throw that at 0%, and then there's nothing in there until you just barely tap it, and then it'll be that quick to react to you. It's a little bit less like, not input lag, but input delay, like on your own finger. So if you really want that trigger finger, throw it at 0% and you'll be good. I haven't had a problem yet, so we'll leave it at 10%. But I am thinking about moving these to 0% because of just, like, I don't really put my fingers on those triggers unless I plan to use them. So I might do that in the future. And then at the end, obviously, to go the full 100, it's like barely not at the end, but you know, that I think is just to save you from not having to worry about going all the way down every single time. So that is the triggers. Moving on again. So this is for any preset that you want. Now this is where the vibration comes in, and it gets pretty nutty here as well. So you have the left wing and the trigger vibration by themselves. So if you hold X and LT, it'll vibrate the controller. You probably can't hear this, but I'm going to put it up to the mic. It's ASMR, baby. And then what's really loud, and the reason why I want to show you this, is the trigger. It gets insane. Now this, you can probably hear by itself. And now I'll put it on the mic. It's pretty intense. So that one I can definitely hear. I haven't had any games use this option yet, but I think this is more for the Xbox, the new games, to use that vibration in the triggers themselves. So I haven't really played around with that too much yet. But say you hate vibration and you don't want to have to worry about, all right, do I have to turn it off in every single game? You can just throw these all the way down to 0% right now. Wouldn't have to worry about it in any game from here on out. So that is a good feature. Personally, I've never had that issue. Like, I used to be like a first-person shooter, not pro, but like between pro and amateur. And like almost everyone I know, when they play first-person shooter, they turn off vibration right away. And I actually kind of like it. Like, I've always had it on because I think people think it will, like, oh, my aim is going to be slightly off because the vibration control. That's never bothered me whatsoever. So I leave everything on so I don't have to worry about that. But that is what you can do with this controller. Then there's a few other settings. They have firmware updates on the controller. Then they have a user manual. And then, like, there's driver versions, Thrustmaster versions, all that stuff if you need to see it. But that's it. That is what is in this program. It is fantastic for the eSwap X Pro controller. You can customize literally everything for whatever game you want. You can have two profiles on the controller whenever you want, which is great because, you know, your normal setting, and then it's like specialized game setting if you need it. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much to Thrustmaster for sponsoring these videos. And next time, maybe we'll play some more Rumble tips and tricks for you guys with the Thrustmaster. But until then, we'll see you.